Now, I don't have an engine stand big enough for this behemoth. I don't have one of them sweet stands I used to have when I worked at MDO. So I'm going old school. No, I'm not using a tire. So I got some 4x4s and I got some of this leftover drawer material from Harbor Freight. I'm tripling it, quadrupling it up on these 4x4s. And then I'm going to lay it flat on the deck face. And I'm going to rebuild the long block or the short block with deck face down. You guys are going to find this interesting. So let's get this thing ready to go. What I got going on now is I got to get the cam in. Now, you saw me clean that one up earlier to get the paint off of it. I'm going to blow your minds. At least anybody from the 30s or 40s up, this will blow your mind. The only part of this engine that gets oil pressure are the mains. Everything else is splash and drip. This is where it gets nuts. These are the cam bearings. They are parent metal, cast iron. No bronze, no aluminum, no lead, no nothing. These holes are how it gets oiled. The rear one, these oil holes, when I go to bolt this in, the bolts externally will be facing down. So it gets drip from the drip and splash from the cam and lifters. This one here probably has more load on it because it's the front of the cam and it's gear driven. So there's going to be some sideways pushing, and it's a helical cam, I think. Is it a helical? I don't know. I'll have to look at the gears. If it's helical, it's going to want to push and pull it. So this one, when it gets bolted in, these holes here are going to be above that hole right there. So this is your cam gear and your crank gear. There's a drip tray right here that is going to collect oil and feed it in right there to lubricate the camshaft. And there is, oh, yep, there is, right here. Here's your thrust part of it. And the reason why I know that this takes the thrust load is because you've got oil grooves. Because when the oil gets in here, you've got some oil grooves that move it around, but there's a leak path right here that allows it, you can see the groove right there, allows the oil to drip into here. So the cam thrusts are pushing forward on this. So I am going to guess it's a helical gear. Yeah, it's a helical gear. So it's trying to pull the camshaft out of the engine. Pretty interesting. I'm going to clean these up. They've been sitting around for 2 years. Good old brake cylinder hone. I just want to do some light cleanup on this. Nothing real crazy. I just want to get the rust out of it. And once again, I'm not worried about oil. This is just a quick cleanup. Cross hatch is not important. I don't know if you can see it. They got it cleaned up. I might come in here with some emery and give it a little finer polish. Yeah, I think I'm going to hit it with some emery, or maybe even Scotch-Brite might even work on this thing. I don't know. Yeah, I'm going to have to get some emery on it. Oh, look, there's some 400 there. Let's see how that works. Yeah. So I'm going to take some 400 and then finish it up with the emery. And then before I install this, I'm going to take some measurements. I want to, just for my own curiosity, I want to see what the bearing measurement is. Since this isn't under pressure, I'm assuming that's probably got about 4 thousandths. I don't know. We'll see. Like everything I do, I change my mind. I figure it'd be easier to clean this up this way. Whoa! Do not do this. I am very prone to breaking OSHA violations and rules. Maybe I should slow this down, huh? That seems to be a little safer now. I know. There's a joke in here somewhere about a sex swing and a swivel. I know it. All right, let me finish cleaning these up. Well, I'm not getting too crazy with this. I'm just using some of these telescoping gauges. And I'm making sure not to get into any of the oil grooves. And I'm just using some calipers here. There's not really much I can do with it. I don't even know what the spec is supposed to be on these, so if there was something wrong, I wouldn't even know how to correct it, to be honest. Yeah, some weird measurements going on here. So I'm doing this to both of these, or all 3 of these bearings. And then let's see where this all comes out. I'm interested in the clearances. I'm not getting too crazy with multiple camshaft measurements. I don't think this thing's egg-shaped at all. But all in all, I tell you what, I'm impressed. And I'll tell you here in a second. These are my clearances on the front. 2 thousandths on the front, mid bearing 4 thousandths, rear bearing 4 thousandths. This thing was made over 100 years ago, and they used lathes and tooling driven by leather belts. And think about this, there's no oil pressure going to this bearing, none. This is like almost nowhere at all. That's amazing. Let me get the rest of the numbers in and we'll see where we ride. Well, the numbers are in, and it's amazing. These guys 100 some years ago did a better job than that machine shop down in Ohio. At 2 thousandths on the front of the front bearing, then 4 and 4 clearance. Now the mid bearing, I got 6 thousandths, and then on the front and rear of the bearing, and then I got 4, 6, and 4. I can't comprehend that. Whatever they were doing 104 years ago, I wish we could do that today. Leather belts, man, in a dirty, gringy, grimy, freaking sweatshop. Amazing. The shaft is ready to be inserted. I didn't bother showing everybody me cleaning and lubing my shaft before insertion. I didn't think anybody wanted to see that. So I got the rear bearing carrier in, lubed up. I'm using 50 weight. And the reason I don't have all the carriers in, or the bearing carriers in, is because the front bearing is the thrust bearing. So you need to gently insert the shaft, but the right way. That's better. Trying not to ding up these cam lobes. Okay, there we go. That's in. Oh yeah, that's beautiful. Oh, I want you to hear that. That's the sound of tightness. Okay, now that's where the bolt that goes in from the outside of the block that holds the front bearing in. I don't want to get any oil in that hole because I'm going to be using Loctite in it. Let's get this slid in here. This is some amazing, amazing machining tolerances they have going on here. Okay, let me get that bolt in there and tightened off. Only put the Loctite on this part of the bolt. Don't let it get on that. That gets inserted into where the bearing is. And I don't want Loctite getting into that bearing anywhere. It may or may not cause problems. I'm not going to risk it. See, the bearing is not lined up properly. See if I can find it. Right there, you got to wiggle it. Oh yeah, a little bit of wiggling, and then it helps it get in. Not getting too crazy tight. Click. Okay. Now, I can't check the camshaft play yet because I don't have the front gear on it. The front gear is going to tighten up to that shoulder right there. The gear will go on later. Camshaft in. Do I have time? Yes, I do have time. I think it's time to put the crankshaft in. I am putting brand new bolts in this, and I couldn't get the exact sizes. Have to run a short bolt here so it doesn't interfere with cam gear. I got a bolt for that, but I wanted to check the clearance on this bolt. And the lucky thing I did is it's bottomed out and it's hitting the gusset here, or the boss for the bolt. If I would have torqued that, I would have blown out the side of the block. So what I'm going to do is I am going to go put that in the lathe, and I am going to machine a quarter inch off the bottom of this bolt. Hey, let me show you what's going on here. I'm getting ready to put this together. These don't have lock tabs in them. They've got a screw that you screw in there, a brass screw. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put green Loctite in here. I don't want to get by the oil passage on the back side of the shell and on the green screw, and I'm going to bolt it down. And this is going to be a lightning rod because I got 3 caps to do, 3 of the block bearings to do, and then I want to get the crank in and I want to get it torqued down before the green Loctite has a chance to set up, because just in case this isn't machined properly and there's some deflection when I bolt the crank in, which there shouldn't be, but just in case there is, I want to make sure that green Loctite is liquid enough to compress when I bolt the crank down, because I don't want the green light Loctite to be holding the bearing up. And we're talking microns here. In my mind, that's miles. So that's the project, and this is how we're going to hit it. I'm going to start with the caps first, and then when I go to do the block, we'll show you the whole process. Okay, let's get this going. This won't be the fastest I've ever got my crank put in. It won't be the slowest either. I'm not going too crazy with this Loctite. This is just, I'm telling you right now, this is just nothing but pure overkill. Well, we don't want any on that, do we? Hey. Oh, Dabberoo up on the screw. Whoa, that's moving around on its own. Uh, well, it's a brass screw, so don't go too tight. You don't want to break it, right? These holes are squirters. Those holes will take the oil pressure, squirt it straight up the backside of the pistons. So it's like a shower in there. Okay, I'm also going to take and give these a little tap to deform the screw. So it's a little additive to the Loctite. Because if the screw comes out while the engine's running, that's not going to be good. Make sure I got nothing in these holes. That looks good. That looks good. Now I've got my crank pre-lubed. So all I got to do is drop it in. And I am using Lubriplate. Old timer back in the 70s had me build his engines for him using Lubriplate. He was racing out at Waterford. So, it worked for him. It works for me. Now, had already pre-done all these shims. That's in episodes past. I'm not going through that hell again or explaining that hell again, because that was money I paid for that machine shop that didn't get done. But that's another story. I digress. The bolts go in dry. These are not the stock bolts. The stock bolts were fatigued, so I ordered new grade 8 bolts after talking to the fastener tech. He was like, dude, don't overthink this. This engine's freaking old. Just put grade 8 bolts in it and you'll be fine. So that be what I'm doing. Da, da, da. Hopefully none of these shims fell off. in the last year of this sitting around that would screw up the torque of these. I'm fairly certain I did the correct thing. Come on, get on there. Yeah, it's always one. It's always one. I can play this game. The other ones were fine. I don't know what this cap's problem is. Yeah, the other ones worked out fine. This one's being a pain in the ass. Okay, there we go. Okay, so far it turns. Yeah, better. 3/4. Where's my impact gun? Of course. It's over here. Yeah, you heard me right. Impact gun. I have finesse. I can get away with using an impact gun. Okay, before I do anything, now that I got that loosely tightened up, oh, look, it's still turning. I don't know if you can see this or not. Yeah, you can see it. I'm going to hammer my crank home. What I just did is seat this end plate bearing. I'm going to step torque this whole shit show. First, I'm going up to just a loose feel. I want to make sure this crank is turning as I do all this. Oh boy, so far so good. So that if I have a problem, I know which bearing it is. So far so good. Yeah. Okay, let me grab a wrench to put on the end of this. Now I'm going to show you a little trick with these cranks, with the Babbitt. I got it to where it rotates relatively freely for a Babbitt crank. But then I get a high spot it hits somewhere, and it's right there. So I got it in the middle of the high spot. So I'm going to teach this bad crank a lesson. Bad crank. Bad. So I'm going to beat on it. Beat on this crank. And hopefully that Babbitt will seat itself and move into where it needs to be, where the crank does what I want it to do. And there we go. That took care of the problem. So, listen to the story. If you have a crank that doesn't cooperate, just beat it. I hate to leave everybody disappointed here, but now that my crank is happy, pistons and rods are under this mess over here somewhere. Oh no, the rods are over there. The pistons are in here. I need to get those assembled and drop these in. Problem is, we got a meeting, association, that I got to go to. And I have other things on my mind. So I'm shutting this down for a few days. And when I'm ready, pistons and rods go back in. When that happens, the engine comes out of the Nash because I have to use the oil lines out of the engine, Cine Nash right now, and some other components. All in all, I'm glad I did all that pre-work sizing those bearings, or it would have been hell for me. It was hell for me then, but it was easy now. I have to check cam end play yet, but I will do that after that bolt is torqued. So for now, I'm going to oil everything up and throw a blanket over this, and it can take a nap for a few days. What am I doing? What am I doing? We can't end a video that way. I want something kind of light. What do I have? I don't have anything in here that's kind of light. I'm gonna go totally naked. Well, that crank talk, yeah.